Just one more round.
The most feared man in Seoul's underworld was on his knees, tears streaming down his face as he clutched the hem of her dress. Blood dripped from his split lip, mingling with the expensive whiskey spilled across the marble floor of his penthouse. "Please," Kim Tae-sung choked out, his voice breaking. "Just one more round. I'm begging you, Amara, one more chance." Amara stood above him, her dark eyes cold as winter steel, the diamond-encrusted gun in her hand, catching the city lights streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows. She pressed the barrel against his forehead. "You had your chance, Tae-sung," she whispered. "You should have thought about consequences before you." 3 days earlier. Amara Okonkwo adjusted her sunglasses as she stepped off the private jet at Incheon International Airport. The humid Seoul air hit her like a wall, so different from the dry heat of Lagos she'd left behind 12 hours ago. At 26, she'd built an empire most people couldn't imagine, but not the kind anyone would celebrate at a business conference. Her phone buzzed. A message in Korean from an unknown number. "The package has been secured. Warehouse 7, as discussed. Payment upon delivery." She smiled, right on schedule. What nobody in Seoul knew, what even her contacts in the Korean underworld didn't fully understand, was that Amara wasn't just another international dealer looking to expand into Asian markets. She was hunting something far more valuable than drugs or weapons. She was hunting the truth about her sister. 3 months ago, her younger sister Kioma had disappeared in Seoul. The police called it a voluntary departure, a 22-year-old woman who'd come to teach English and simply decided to vanish. But Amara knew better. Kioma's last message had been frantic, terrified. "They know what I found. The tiger's real business. Sister, if something happens to me." The message had cut off there. The tiger? Kim Tae-sung, the man who controlled everything from narcotics to human trafficking in Seoul's shadows, who politicians feared and rival gangs wouldn't dare cross. The man whose legitimate casino fronts generated billions while his real money came from places the law couldn't touch. Amara had spent 3 months infiltrating his network from Lagos, posing as a Nigerian supplier with access to synthetic drug precursors that couldn't be traced. She'd made herself indispensable, valuable enough that the tiger himself had requested this meeting. The black Mercedes waiting outside the airport was predictably intimidating. 2 men in suits, both carrying, both eyeing her with the kind of suspicion that meant they'd already done their homework. They found nothing, of course. Her cover was immaculate. The drive took them through Seoul's gleaming districts, past the tourists and the corporate towers, deeper into neighborhoods where neon signs advertised things in coded language. They stopped at what looked like an ordinary restaurant, famous for its galbi, according to the sign, but Amara knew better. The restaurant was a front. The real business happened below. "Phone," one of the men grunted in English. She handed it over without argument. They'd find nothing incriminating. The restaurant's kitchen had a walk-in freezer. In the freezer, behind a false panel, a staircase descended into darkness. Amara's heart rate stayed steady as they guided her down, through corridors that smelled of cigarette smoke and fear, past rooms where she heard sounds she forced herself not to identify. Finally, they reached a door of polished mahogany that seemed absurdly civilized in this concrete dungeon. Kim Tae-sung sat behind a desk that probably cost more than most Seoul apartments, reviewing documents with the focus of a CEO. Which, technically, he was, just not of any company listed on the stock exchange. He was younger than she'd expected, maybe 40, with sharp features and eyes that missed nothing. "Miss Okonkwo," he said in perfect English, gesturing to the chair across from him. "Your reputation precedes you. Lagos has been very quiet about you, which tells me you're either very good or very dangerous." "Both," Amara replied, settling into the chair with practiced confidence. "I don't deal with amateurs, Mr. Kim, and I don't appreciate having my time wasted. You requested this meeting. I'm here. Let's discuss business." Something flickered in his expression, surprise, maybe, or respect. People didn't speak to the tiger like that. "Direct, I appreciate that." He slid a folder across the desk. These are the compounds I need. Can you source them? Amara scanned the list. Advanced precursors for next-generation synthetics, the kind that drug enforcement agencies were only beginning to understand. Quantity: enough to supply my network for 6 months. Initial shipment within 2 weeks. 50 million USD, she said without hesitation. Half up front, half on delivery, non-negotiable. T-Sung laughed, a sound without humor. You're ambitious. Most suppliers would. Most suppliers would get you caught within 3 months, Amara interrupted. I don't know if you've noticed, Mr. Kim, but international enforcement is tightening. The compounds you want are flagged at every major port. I can get them to you clean, but expertise costs money. The room fell silent. His men shifted nervously. Nobody interrupted the tiger. Then T-Sung smiled. I think I like you, Miss Okonkwo, very well, 50 million, but I want a demonstration first. Prove you can deliver what you promise. What kind of demonstration? There's a shipment coming through Busan tomorrow night. Rival operation, very well protected. They've been moving into my territory and I want to send a message. Get me that shipment and I'll know you're serious. Amara's mind raced. This wasn't part of the plan. She'd expected negotiation, due diligence, maybe a small test run, not a direct confrontation with another criminal organization. But she'd come too far to back out now. Consider it done, she said, but I'll need resources, men, weapons, intelligence on the target. You'll have everything you need. T-Sung pressed a button on his desk. A screen emerged from the wall, displaying blueprints and surveillance photos. The shipment arrives at Pier 17 at midnight. 6 guards, heavily armed. The cargo is worth approximately 10 million USD. Bring it to me intact, and we have a deal. As Amara studied the details, committing everything to memory, she noticed something in one of the surveillance photos. A woman in the background, partially obscured, but with a distinctive scar on her left arm. Her blood ran cold. That scar, she'd recognize it anywhere. She'd watched it form when Kioma had fallen off her bicycle at age 12. Her sister was alive, and she was working for Kim T-Sung's rivals. Amara forced her expression to remain neutral, even as her mind screamed. Every instinct told her to demand answers, to grab T-Sung by his expensive silk tie and force him to tell her everything. But she'd survived this long by being smarter than her impulses. Acceptable terms, she said coolly, standing. I'll need the resources delivered to my hotel within 2 hours. I assume you know where I'm staying. T-Sung's smile was thin. Miss Okonkwo, I knew where you were staying before your plane landed. My men will contact you shortly. As his guards escorted her back through the labyrinth, Amara's mind worked through the implications. Kioma was alive, but working with T-Sung's enemies. Had she been captured? Turned? Or had she infiltrated them the same way Amara was infiltrating the Tiger's organization? Back in her hotel room at the Shilla, opulent enough to match her cover as a wealthy international dealer, Amara pulled out her encrypted laptop and accessed files she'd hidden in layers of security. Everything she'd gathered on Kim T-Sung, his operations, his rivals. The rival organization was called the Jade Dragons, run by a woman named Park Jae-woo, younger than T-Sung, more brutal and rapidly expanding. Intelligence suggested she was former National Intelligence Service, Korea's CIA, until something had gone wrong. Now she used her training to build an empire that challenged the Tiger's dominance. And somehow, Kioma was with them. Amara pulled up the last messages from her sister, the ones she'd analyzed 1,000 times. They know what I found. The Tiger's real business. What had Kioma discovered? What could be worse than drugs and trafficking that the Tiger was already known for? A knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. The resources had arrived. 3 men who looked former military, a duffel bag of weapons, and a tablet with detailed intelligence on the Busan shipment. Mr. Kim sends his regards, the lead man said in Korean. Amara responded in the same language, perfectly fluent, another surprise that registered in their expressions. We're here to assist, whatever you need. I need you to follow orders without question, Amara replied. This isn't a negotiation. I run this operation my way, or I walk and tell your boss to find someone else. They nodded, properly chastened. Amara spent the next 6 hours planning. The Busan operation would be risky, but doable. What complicated everything was the real objective. She needed to get close enough to identify if that woman in the photo was truly Keoma, and if so, extract her without blowing both their covers. By the time they reached Busan, night had fallen over the port city. Pier 17 was in the industrial district, far from the tourist areas and cruise terminals. The smell of salt water and diesel fuel hung thick in the air. Amara and her team positioned themselves in a warehouse across from the target pier. Through night vision binoculars, she watched the Jade Dragon Guards patrol. 6, as T-Sung had said, but heavily armed with military-grade weapons. This wasn't a standard criminal operation. This was professional. Then she saw her. Keoma emerged from a black van, no longer the cheerful English teacher who'd left Lagos with dreams of adventure. Her sister moved with the careful precision of someone trained in combat, checking her weapon with practiced efficiency. She wore tactical gear and communicated through an earpiece. What the hell had happened in 3 months? Target identified, Amara whispered into her radio. Nobody fires until my signal. We go in quiet, extract the cargo, minimal casualties. Boss, those are kill orders from Mr. Kim. One of her team started. And I'm telling you minimal casualties, Amara snapped. Unless you'd like to explain to the tiger why you questioned the person he trusted with this job. They moved like shadows, approaching from multiple angles. Amara had positioned herself to intercept Keoma directly. As the guards changed positions, she made her move. Keoma never saw it coming. Amara's arm locked around her throat in a chokehold, dragging her into the darkness between shipping containers. Don't scream, Amara whispered in Ibo, their native language. It's me. Keoma's body went rigid with shock. Amara, no, you can't be here, they'll kill you. What happened to you? Why are you with the Jade Dragons? I don't have time to explain, Keoma struggled, but Amara held firm. You need to leave Seoul, tonight. They're planning something, both organizations, the Tiger and Jaiwoo there. Gunfire erupted across the pier. Amara's team had engaged the guards, but something was wrong. More men were pouring out of the warehouse, dozens of them, far more than intelligence had indicated. This wasn't a simple shipment protection. This was a trap. It's a setup, Keoma gasped. Jaiwoo knew the Tiger would send someone. She's been waiting. A spotlight blazed to life, pinning them in harsh white light. Amara released Keoma, both sisters raising their hands against the glare. Park Jaiwoo's voice boomed across the pier through speakers. Miss Okonkwo, I've been so curious about the Tiger's new pet. Tell me, does he know you're here looking for your sister? Or does he think you actually care about his pathetic drug operation? Amara's blood turned to ice. Her cover was blown, completely. Did you really think we wouldn't notice? Jaiwoo continued. A Nigerian woman suddenly appearing in Lagos drug circles 3 months ago, right after a teacher named Keoma Okonkwo started asking dangerous questions in Seoul. We've been watching you from the beginning. Keoma grabbed Amara's arm. Listen to me. The Tiger and Jaiwoo, they're not rivals, they're partners. This whole gang war, it's theater. They're working together on something much bigger. What are you talking about? They're trafficking people, Amara, not for slavery or prostitution, for experiments, some kind of medical trials that kill 90% of subjects. I found the facility, the bodies, that's why they came after me. Jaiwoo captured me, but she wants to bring them down. She's former intelligence, she's been building a case. An explosion rocked the pier. Amara's team was pinned down, outgunned and outmaneuvered. But the explosion hadn't come from the Jade Dragons. New vehicles roared onto the scene, black SUVs with no plates. The Tiger's personal kill squad. He doesn't trust you, Keoma said urgently. He never did. This whole thing was to see how you'd react, what you'd do when confronted with me. He's known everything from the start. Park Jae-woo's voice came through again, but this time directed at the tiger's approaching forces. Kim Tae-sung, I have what you want, but if you kill me, you'll never find the evidence I've compiled. Every facility, every murdered patient, every politician you've bribed, it all goes public. The shooting stopped. An eerie silence fell over the pier. Then Kim Tae-sung himself emerged from the lead SUV, walking calmly through the carnage like a man taking an evening stroll. He stopped 20 feet from where Amara and Keoma stood in the spotlight. Miss Okonkwo, he said pleasantly. Or should I say both Miss Okonkwos, this has been illuminating. Jae-woo, you've played your role perfectly. The evidence, please. What happened next drained the color from Amara's face. Park Jae-woo walked out of the shadows, approaching the tiger not as an enemy, but as an ally. She handed him a hard drive. All of it, Jae-woo said. Every person who knew about the facilities, every potential whistleblower, they're all on there. Keoma's grip on Amara's arm tightened. No, she promised. She said she wanted to stop him. You stupid girl, Jae-woo laughed. I never worked for national intelligence. I worked for the tiger, eliminating threats to his real operation. And you led me straight to every person who suspected the truth. Your sister's little investigation from Lagos, that helped too. Thank you both. The tiger raised his gun, pointing it casually at the sisters. You see, Miss Okonkwo, Amara, I don't need drug suppliers. I have pharmaceutical companies for that. What I needed was to identify every possible threat to my actual business. Human trials for medications that will revolutionize medicine and make me richer than any drug lord in history. Your sister found one facility. There are 17 others. Amara's mind raced through possibilities, escapes, solutions. They had seconds before execution. Then Keoma did something unexpected. She laughed. You really think we came here without insurance? Keoma pulled something from her pocket, a phone, screen glowing. Every word you just said was live-streamed to 5 international news organizations and Interpol. Facial recognition confirmed your identity. It's over, Tae-sung. The tiger's expression finally cracked, fury replacing his calm facade. Kill them, kill everyone, burn it all. The pier exploded into chaos. Jade Dragon soldiers who thought they were Jae-woo's loyal followers revealed themselves as deep-cover Interpol agents. The tiger's men found themselves surrounded. But in the confusion, the tiger grabbed Amara, his gun pressed against her temple. You clever bitches, he snarled, dragging her toward his vehicle. You think this changes anything? I own judges, prosecutors, entire police departments. Maybe in Korea, Amara gasped. But this is international now, you're done. 3 days of interrogation, revelation, and legal maneuvering passed in a blur. Which brought them here, to this moment in his penthouse. The most feared man in Seoul's underworld on his knees, begging. But he wasn't begging for mercy. He wasn't begging for his freedom. One more round, the tiger pleaded, blood and tears mixing. One more chance to kill you before they take me. They're coming up the elevator now, police, Interpol, all of them. Let me die with honor. Let me take you with me. Amara looked at the man who'd orchestrated her sister's kidnapping, who'd murdered hundreds in illegal experiments, who'd nearly destroyed them both. She lowered her gun. No, she said simply. You don't get honor, you don't get a warrior's death. You get prison, publicity, and everyone knowing exactly what you are. The elevator doors opened behind her. Footsteps rushed in. The tiger's face contorted with rage as police swarmed around him. This isn't over. You hear me? I have people everywhere. They'll find you, both of you. As they dragged him away, Amara finally let herself breathe. Keoma appeared at her side, both sisters watching their nightmare finally end. Is it really over? Keoma asked quietly. Amara was about to answer when her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Your sister found 17 facilities. I ran 23. The tiger was useful but sloppy. Thank you for removing him. I'll be in touch about your real talents. You'd make an excellent partner. M. Amara's blood ran cold. She realized the truth. They hadn't ended anything. They just eliminated the competition for someone far more dangerous.